All right, so you guys wanted to hear more about the Mackenzie Lueck case?
Yeah.
So let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Back in 2019,
Okay.
23-year-old Mackenzie Lueck
Mm-hmm.
just vanished.
Just poof. Gone.
Yeah, it was really scary, especially for, like college students in the area
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and the University of Utah.
absolutely. Especially because initially it seemed like a pretty normal missing person case, right? Her family hadn't heard from her for a few days, so they requested a welfare check.
Oh, so they called the police like, hey, can you just go check on her?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they go there, and her car is at home.
Okay.
There are no signs of a struggle or anything.
Oh, so really mysterious.
Very mysterious.
Yeah.
But, as they start digging deeper, things take a pretty dark turn.
Okay.
And it becomes clear that this isn't just a missing person case, but a
I
really,
don't know.
a really meticulously planned crime.
Wow. Okay, so let's rewind a little bit and go back to like what we know about her last movements.
Sure.
It was June 17th, 2019, right?
Right.
And she was coming back from her grandmother's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
She took a Lyft from the airport, but instead of going home, she asked to be dropped off at Hatch Park in North Salt Lake
Uh-huh.
around 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Now, this seems kind of odd, right?
Right.
Why would you go to a park at 3 a.m. in the morning?
It's definitely a red flag for investigators.
Yeah.
And so they immediately started looking into, well, first of all, they cleared the Lyft driver pretty quickly
Okay.
using driving records and GPS data and all that stuff.
So he's in the clear.
Yeah, he's totally in the clear.
Okay.
So then they shifted their focus to Mackenzie's phone records.
Okay.
And this is where technology really becomes a key player in the investigation.
Yeah.
Because what they found was that Mackenzie was active on several dating apps,
Oh.
including one called Seeking Arrangement.
Seeking Arrangement. I'm not familiar with that.
So Seeking Arrangement is a website that basically connects
Yep.
sugar daddies and sugar babies. So basically it facilitates these relationships where wealthier, often older men provide financial and other support to younger women.
Hmm?
It's a pretty controversial platform, to say the least.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
But anyway, that's what she was using.
Okay, so they know she's using this site. How do they figure out who she was talking to?
Well, this is where it gets really crazy.
Okay.
There was a private investigator named Rob Joseph
Okay.
who had actually just met Mackenzie by chance a few weeks before her disappearance.
Okay.
And when he saw her story on the news,
Mm-hmm.
he recognized her.
Wow.
And he knew about her Seeking Arrangement profile, so
Yeah.
he immediately reached out to the police.
Oh, wow. Good for him.
Yeah, he was like, hey, this could be important.
Yeah.
And it turns out it was.
Okay, so his tip led them to a man named Ayula Ajayi.
Correct.
Can you tell me about him?
So Ayula Ajayi was a 32-year-old IT worker, originally from Nigeria. He had served in the National Guard,
Okay.
but he also had a pretty complex online presence. Like, he was on a bunch of different social media platforms and dating apps, including Seeking Arrangement,
Oh.
even though he was married at the time.
He is married. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that obviously raises some red flags.
Mhm.
And when the police first questioned him, he actually denied even knowing Mackenzie at all.
Okay.
But then later on, he changed his story
Okay.
and admitted to texting her.
Oh, why would he do that?
Well, it turns out that the police had actually linked his burner phone number to messages on Mackenzie's phone.
So he was trying to cover his tracks, but accidentally revealed a connection.
Exactly, a classic slip-up.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what happens next?
Well, obviously, with this new information, the police get a warrant and they search Ajayi's house.
Okay.
And right away, they notice that a mattress is missing from his bedroom.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, not good at all.
Yeah.
And it gets even worse because the neighbors actually reported seeing a bonfire in his backyard the night Mackenzie disappeared.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Like he was trying to burn evidence. It seems that way. And they even said they remembered a strange smell coming from the fire.
Okay, so it really seems like he's trying to hide something.
Definitely.
But did they find anything concrete, like at the house, that linked him to Mackenzie?
They did.
Okay.
They brought in cadaver dogs.
Oh.
You know, those dogs that are trained to detect the scent of human remains.
Yeah.
And the dogs actually hit on a few spots in the backyard.
Really?
Yeah, and they ended up finding up some human tissue.
Oh, gosh.
And get this, a burnt iPhone.
Wow.
And the iPhone matched Mackenzie's DNA.
So at this point, it's looking pretty bad for him, right?
Yeah, I mean, his story is falling apart.
Yeah.
And the evidence is really stacking up against him.
So what does he do?
He cracked. basically.
Oh, he confessed.
Yeah, he confessed.
Wow.
He admitted to killing Mackenzie.
Oh, my gosh.
He told the police how he tied her up in his house,
Uh-huh.
choked her, and strangled her to death.
So it was premeditated.
Yeah, this wasn't some kind of, like, random act of violence, you know? This was planned.
That's terrifying.
It's really scary. And what's even more disturbing is that he never really gave a clear motive.
Really?
No, he never fully explained why he did it.
Oh, that's so creepy.
Yeah, it makes the whole thing just so much more unsettling, right?
Yeah.
You're left with this, like, gaping hole of why.
It's like evil for evil's sake,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
And it's especially chilling because, we're talking about a guy who was married,
Right.
yet he was active on all these dating apps,
Yeah.
targeting young women.
Right. And remember, there was also that previous accusation of sexual assault against him
Oh, yeah, that's right.
from another woman he had met online.
So there's definitely a pattern of predatory behavior.
Absolutely a pattern there.
And then on top of all that, there's the child pornography that they found on his computer.
Yeah.
It just keeps getting worse and worse.
It really does. And, while those charges were eventually dropped as part of a plea deal,
Okay.
it just adds another layer of, like, depravity to this whole situation,
It's just dark.
Yeah, it's really dark. And it makes you wonder, was Mackenzie his intended target all along?
Yeah.
Or was she just another victim in some larger, even more sinister plan?
Like he was on his way to becoming a serial killer.
Yeah, that's what some experts have theorized,
Wow.
including a former FBI agent who actually worked on the case.
Really?
Yeah, he said he believed that Ajayi was potentially on a path to becoming a serial killer.
That's chilling.
Yeah, and when you look at his actions and the lack of a clear motive, it's not hard to see why they would say that.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
So where did they find Mackenzie's body? Did he ever tell them where he hit her?
So initially he refused to say anything,
Oh, of course.
but the police were able to use his cell phone records
Uh-huh.
to track his movements,
Mhm.
and the pings led them to Logan Canyon.
Logan Canyon.
Yeah, it's about 100 miles north of Salt Lake City,
Wow.
and they found her body there buried in a shallow grave.
He drove all the way up there to hide her body,
Yeah, he went to great lengths to try and cover up his crime.
but he still messed up.
Yeah, all that planning, and he still got caught.
It's almost like he wanted to get caught.
Well, there's something about that, right?
It's like almost too perfect.
Almost.
Okay, so they find her body in Logan Canyon. What happened next?
Well, the autopsy confirmed that Mackenzie died from blunt force trauma to the head.
Oh.
And there's this, like, really disturbing detail.
Sure.
Apparently, after the police first questioned Ajayi about his Wi-Fi connection,
Yeah.
he actually went back to his backyard,
Mm-hmm.
dug up Mackenzie's body, and then moved it to Logan Canyon.
Oh, my God. He dug up her body and moved it.
Yeah.
That's so messed
That's
up.
really, really disturbing.
And then there's that whole thing with the soundproof room, too.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Remember that.
Yeah.
A contractor came forward and said that Ajayi had asked him to build a soundproof room in his basement.
With all these, like, weird features.
Yeah, like a thumb lock on the door and really specific dimensions.
Right. It was really strange, like almost too specific. Like
Yeah.
he had something very specific in mind.
It's like something out of a horror movie.
I know, right?
Yeah, and it just makes you wonder what he was really planning.
Right.
Like, what was he going to use that room for?
Yeah, and was Mackenzie just the beginning?
Yeah, scary thought.
Very scary.
So what happened at the trial?
Well, in the end, Ajayi struck a plea deal to avoid the death penalty.
Oh, okay.
He pleaded guilty to aggravated murder and desecration of a body.
And what was the sentence?
He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Wow.
So he'll never be getting out.
Good. He deserves that.
I think most people agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And during his sentencing, he did offer, a brief apology to Mackenzie's parents.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
But I bet it didn't really feel genuine.
No, it felt very hollow to a lot of people, especially to her father,
Yeah.
who delivered a really powerful statement at the sentencing.
What does he say?
He talked about his pain and his anger and the just immense void that Mackenzie's absence had left in his life.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
And he basically said that Ajayi's words meant nothing,
Yeah.
like they couldn't bring his daughter back.
I feel so bad for her family.
It's just heartbreaking, this whole case.
And it's a scary reminder that bad things can happen to anyone.
Right, like no one is immune to this kind of evil.
Yeah, and it makes you think twice about online dating.
Absolutely. You have to be so careful.
Yeah.
Platforms like Seeking Arrangement, where there's this power imbalance
Oh, right.
and this potential for exploitation, they
Yeah.
can be especially risky.
I guess it's just important to be aware of the dangers.
Yeah, it's crucial.
Yeah.
Do your research, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to say no.
Like your safety should always come first.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've really gone deep into the details of what happened to Mackenzie. But I want to kind of like zoom out a bit now and talk about like the bigger picture.
Sure.
This case wasn't just some local news story. It really like captivated the whole nation.
Yeah, it totally did.
Why do you think that was?
I think it was a few things.
Yeah.
First of all, you have this young, beautiful college student with like her whole life ahead of her,
Yeah.
and she just vanishes.
Right.
And then you have the mystery, the investigation, the twists and turns.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the ultimate revelation of this just like brutal crime, right?
Yeah, it's awful.
It was just awful. And I think it really tapped into some of our deepest fears.
Yeah, for sure. Like it could happen to anyone.
Exactly.
And I think it also made people really confront like the dangers of online dating.
Right.
Like it made it all feel very real.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we always hear about online safety.
Uh-huh.
But this case really brought it home.
Yeah, it became very real for a lot of people. And it's not just about being cautious. It's about changing the whole culture around online safety, right?
Right.
We need to be talking about this more openly and honestly,
Yeah.
especially with young people, teaching them how to protect themselves.
Right.
And holding those who engage in predatory behavior accountable for their actions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a collective effort for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And, this case also really showed how challenging it can be for law enforcement to investigate crimes that involve technology.
Right.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Ajay was using burner phones
Mhm.
and encrypted messaging apps.
Right.
And he was really trying to cover his digital tracks.
Yeah, and it makes it much harder for the police to track him down.
Right. Like it's like a whole new world for them.
It is. It's a whole new battleground, and they have to constantly adapt their strategies to keep up.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And it's not just about catching criminals after the fact. It's
Right.
also about preventing these crimes from happening in the first place.
Yeah.
So, like, educating the public. Uh-huh.
Collaborating with tech companies to improve security,
Yeah, that makes sense.
you know.
Things like that.
So, like, as we wrap up this deep dive, what are, like, some key takeaways you hope people will, like, remember from this case?
Well, I think the biggest one is just like the importance of online safety.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just for individuals,
Right.
it's for families, for communities.
Yeah,
like,
right.
we need to be having these conversations, sharing resources, and looking out for each other.
And total?
And I think on a bigger level, this case shows us that even in this like hyper-connected world,
Yeah.
darkness can still lurk in unexpected places, right?
Right.
So we have to be more vigilant. We
Yeah.
have to think critically about the information we consume online.
Yeah.
And just be mindful of the potential consequences of our digital interactions.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's a reminder that behind every profile picture, every username,
Yeah.
there's a real person
Right.
with a story.
Yeah.
And sometimes those stories end tragically.
Yeah, they do.
But it's also like a call to action, right?
Yeah.
To learn from these tragedies
Hmm.
and to create a safer, more compassionate online world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So stories like Mackenzie's become less frequent.
That's the goal,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the Mackenzie Lueck case.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. And please, if you or someone you know needs help, don't hesitate to reach out to the resources available in your community or online.
Yeah, you're not alone.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.